Hello and welcome to Landy's Crypto Corner. Today is February 29th, 2024, but we have started the month of March here on the charts, and we are going to take a look at the monthly close. But first, we're going to start with the daily here. We can see that Bitcoin has closed above the monthly support and resistance zone with one candle, and it has traded back inside of this area. Now, this is the closing monthly all-time high area. So we have the first all-time high that was put in on the monthly back in March of 2021 before coming down for a reaccumulation and then coming up for a double top. We have the monthly close that was a bit higher than that, coming in at 61,350 over here. We did see the daily close open above it, coming in at around 62,520 here, with the swing all the way up there at 64,100. Now, if Bitcoin can hold this monthly area on a daily closing basis, that being the downside monthly here at around 58.8 on a closing basis, that is, not just on a wick basis, because if it does lose this area on a close, then I would be looking a little bit further down, at least on the medium-term timeframes below the daily. But in this case, for right now, if Bitcoin can stay in this area, trade and start closing candles back above this monthly at around 61,350 or so, I would look for it to trade its way back into the 62.5 zone and then attempt a run for the highs there at 64.1 to the 2021 swing high on the monthly, or wick high. They're coming in at $65,000. If Bitcoin can close any kind of daily in there, I would be looking for the all-time high to get ran at around $69,000 and beyond. We'll take a look at the and beyond part here shortly. But as it stands right now, if Bitcoin did lose the major monthly level here on a daily close, I would look for things to come back down, and test somewhere around the close open here at $57,000. Possibly in and around the $54,000 to $55,000 on this close open from Monday to Tuesday. If it did fall any further than that, you do need to be aware that if Bitcoin were to bearishly regain $53,000, we have to keep a very close eye on this low here at the December 2021 support on the weekly there at around 50,800, because if that was dropped, I would be looking for a run to this next monthly somewhere around 47 to the high here at $49,000. So kind of give it a zone down there for price action. Now, this is beginning to slow a bit at the top here, but as it stands right now, there's no real reversal in play. Lower term time frame reversals notwithstanding. As it stands now, we do have a current swing high. Anywhere above there, we're running to 65 and probably the all-time high up there at 69. So if we do see a close below yesterday's wick low at around 60,355, or if Bitcoin even trades below there, I would keep a very close eye on the 58.8 to 58K level and anywhere below there. And I would start to keep an eye on the $57,000 area. If Bitcoin were to trade down from there, that's when we start looking mid 50s to 53 here at the September 2021 weekly swing high. When we take a look at momentum, we can see that Bitcoin still has its stoke pointed to the upside. The current momentum pivot is coming in here at 60,728. So if Bitcoin were to close below there and even still remain in this monthly support resistance zone, we would see an initial cross down for the regular stoke here. Reminder, this is not a stoke RSI, which measures velocity of RSI. This is measuring close over close price momentum. So in this case, just keep a close eye on it. If you do see any closures, below that 60,700 or so, then we would see at minimum an initial cross to the downside here. And then we're probably looking at minimum the bottom side of the current support resistance zone at 58 to 58.8. Now, the one thing that I would say about that is, as it stands right now, because of the volatility of price action on the daily being very high, so we have a very high BBWP read here. It is getting into some of the critical areas. But as I'm going to show you here, when I turn back on the Landy bands, which is just a triple Bollinger Band set with some extra fancy stuff on it, but we could begin to see the the upper second, upper third really start to race to the upside. And while Bitcoin is remaining highly volatile, if it can hold this monthly range at around 58.8 on the low side of the support on a close and regain 61,350, then I would look for things to have the opportunity to test the upper bands. Now, when we turn on the bands here, which are free, you can find them in the link in the video description. I actually have moving averages built into this as well. You can turn those on and off and customize everything in there. Let's turn that off for right now, though. Bitcoin is still hanging out above the upper second standard deviation. So as long as Bitcoin is trading and closing candles above this upper second, which is currently, well, it's just dipping below right now as I'm speaking, but around $61,000. If it can trade and close above there, it still has the opportunity to go spike that upper third zone, which is right there at $65,000. So that would be the April 2021 monthly swing high before the big drawdown to the 30K region, 28K region for reaccumulation. And then the big pump up after the Wyckoff reaccumulation hit the spring. And then we rose eventually over time, heading into that November of 2021 monthly swing high up there at 69K here on Coinbase Spot. Now, Bitcoin's going to remain bullish above the upper second and first standard deviation. In terms of bullish, it's Bitcoin's bullish right now. We're in a bull market, but what I essentially mean is that above the upper first, it's going to remain very bullish on high volatility on the daily here. So I'd be looking for more immediate moves in the stronger half of the bands, as long as it's trading and closing candles above the upper second especially, but even above the upper first. In this case, this is coming in right around the close open here, which would put in a daily closing high if it was closed below at around $57,000. Then we start looking back to, the close open here at around 54 to 55, and then down by the basis, which just happens to line up with that $53,000 wick high area that was previously rejecting price. So we had two nice pins into that area on the daily, held the weekly closes below it as support before moving up. It would be a logical retest. I mean, Bitcoin has been retesting things nearly perfectly, to be quite honest. I mean, even this pin down here to the 38.5 close on the monthly was absolutely stellar. We had some other ones prior to that. The pin right back to a weekly at 34,750, right around this monthly at 35K, but it hit 34,750 within like a couple pennies of our target. So it would not be abnormal. It also wouldn't be abnormal to see things consolidate here before kicking off to the upside as well. And, for me to remain really bullish on an all-time high run sooner rather than later, well, it's going to, of course, have to remain above the upper first, upper second. And, as long as it's above $53,000 and the daily basis band as it stands right now, I'd be looking for things to, just either consolidate or just move on to the all-time highs. If it does happen to bearishly regain the 53K level, then we do have to be aware of the low over here at around 50,500, just below this 50,800 weekly. I would look for some support to come in around wherever the lower first is. So if Bitcoin remains above the basis and upper first for the next day or two, we're likely to see that lower first get above this low here at 50,500. And that's where you would have confluence between support levels, historical horizontal support and resistance, and then where trend is falling with the volatility bands here, or the volatility read of the Bollinger Bands. In this case, the lower first standard deviation to the downside here. If that area was lost, though, you can see that the lower second is right here at the 45.5 monthly level, and that is something that we do want to see. We saw this prior to the move up when the Bollinger Bands were squeezing or compressing together a little bit after the consolidation at the weeklies there. It is now hanging around that area again. It dipped down slightly below 45.5, but a really bullish posture for the lower second in terms of playing wick catcher in a crash scenario in many cases, all the way down to the lower third. We do want to see that with an upside slope here soon. especially with the possibility that, Bitcoin is in a very high volatility environment. By the way, the moving average is still chasing heavily. So I do think that Bitcoin is more likely to continue to test the top side here towards the all-time high than not. It's trailing by quite a bit still. We've got a 98 over 76 here. But if we do see volatility cool down, Bitcoin's gone, sideways for one closure and close back inside that monthly support and resistance zone, we could see day over day this catching up. And even in that case, as long as it's hanging out in the strong half of the bands, we're going to see the lower bands catch up. And then the upper bands come into lower term time frame support up here until we see structure being built out. And then it's going to be very easy to gauge if it's going to move on, especially if Bitcoin starts to get below the upper second and trade towards the upper first, wherever that is, whether it's right where it is today at 57,000 or not. What we will see is continued upside expansion of the Bollinger Bands, and that's where we would get the upper second, kind of replacing the upper third. Now, in this kind of a scenario, that is only in the case where Bitcoin kind of goes sideways or heads down below the upper second, or the upper second gets above price action. Currently, Bitcoin's right on it. So if it can remain above it, it's more likely to keep testing up immediately. But just know that if we do see a cool down phase in BBWP and the bands sweep up over price action, those are going to be all of our available volatility upside targets, or volatility based upside targets, in this case, right in and around the all-time highs. So, and we're likely to see those lower standard deviations start to really move up towards this trend support structure on the high time frame. Support resistance zones, or lining up with them at least. We do have that lower second there. Really want to see that lower third get up there if we do start to see a consolidation, and then we come back to it for resolution if we see a consolidation. Now, high volatility, though, I do want you to know, does imply more immediate moves. Just be aware that, if Bitcoin is trading and closing candles anywhere above the upper first, which is 57,000 or so, we're probably looking at this remaining in the strong half for a little bit longer while volatility remains high. Once it gets below the moving average, then we come back to it. Let's go ahead and take a look at the monthly, because the monthly is pretty exciting. Now, the monthly did not do what I was hoping it would do, and that is close on a new monthly all-time high. Instead, it closed just underneath it, and I did not mean to get rid of the bands there. I actually meant to get rid of my arrow. Gonna have to go over to the menu for that, and we'll just get a new one. All right, so you can see that Bitcoin closed with that extra day. If only February, if only it wasn't a leap year and February had closed on the 28th, Bitcoin would have actually closed, about $1,500 or $1,200 above the October 2021 all-time high on a closing basis. It did not do that, so it will have the opportunity to do that this month. Now, I wanted to note where the upper second standard deviation is now, and look at that. It's right there at $55,000. Now, you'll note that I said on the daily, when looking at the different levels to pay attention to if Bitcoin were to lose the monthly here at 58.8. Well, if it loses that area, I said, look right here where the upper first standard deviation is coming in, right around 57,000. Then the next area is 54 to 55. Well, go figure. 54 to 55 on the monthly here is that upper second standard deviation. It's actually coming in more towards $56,000. I do think if Bitcoin were to trade down towards it, it's probably going to fall to somewhere around the mid $55,000 region. But that's generally where I would be looking. And you might remember a week or two ago, now I can't even remember, when I was talking about $55,000 to possibly 56 after the break of 53. Well, we did actually see a short-term time frame consolidation around that area, so, and a daily close open. So that actually worked out quite well. We even saw lower term time frame resistances right at the monthlies. So we'll go look at that in just a moment. The other big area that I want to pay attention to is the upper first standard deviation. This is trend support typically in any kind of an uptrend, or it's trend resistance in a downtrend. In this case, the upper first standard deviation is now at 43.3. Wow, that has moved up substantially. Recall that it was just slightly above the monthly back here at 38.5, which of course you got to admire how beautiful price has been acting lately with that wick right into that monthly level. Excuse me. All right, so what's the monthly looking like on momentum, Landy? Well, monthly's looking pretty good still. The biggest moves tend to happen when Bitcoin is in the overbought and or oversold zones of stochastic momentum on just about every time frame, to be quite honest. More effective on the higher time frames than not, like the daily and above. But in this case, we can see that price will, or Stoke will turn down if Bitcoin closes the March candle below around 58,900. So right there at the current monthly zone, the monthly all-time high zone. Now, if it were to do that, I would not be looking for the monthly to full on turn down and fall out of the overbought zone and then come all the way to the oversold zone. That's not what I'd be looking for. So I do want to kind of talk about this for just a moment. One of the main reasons is I'd be looking, why I wouldn't be looking for something like that. I'd be looking for more of a bullish reset in and around the bullish control zone and or within the overbought zone on the monthly. And that's because of the 2-month, which will be closing with the March closure of the monthly coming into April. And that's likely when we're going to see the halving somewhere around 420, because why not have it fall on a meme day? But the 2-month is pivoted at 28,723, and then we've got the quarterly, which is also going to be closing with this current monthly candle at the end of the month, and that's coming in at 26,450, 26,500. So because those are in such a bullish posture, and I believe even the 6-month is, we got to go to the index for that actually. The 6-month is, it's turned up at 44,271, that number down there. It's not even worth expanding the chart to take a look at it. I guess we could. We could, because there is some other interesting things that are going to be going on with the 6-month here. It's turned up. The 6-month, of course, not closing for a little while, but it is worth understanding that by the time we get to June, that if this is trading and closing candles anywhere above 44,272, the 6-month is going to get a beautiful cross back to the upside. And the last time we saw this, of course, when Stoke took a while for Stoke to populate, took all the way till 2018, because Bitcoin's still fairly new. It's still a new asset in this case. So we would see only the second cross to the upside that we've ever seen in its history. And then, of course, this is also where we would see the first readable volatility expansion tick over as well, as we do have BBWP approaching that that moving average there. That's exciting, and something that I'll talk to you guys about this tomorrow. What am I trying to say here? Sorry. Word saladed you up. I can't talk. I'm not even going to try anymore. I'm just going to quit while I'm ahead and move on. Let's go ahead and take a look and see what other higher term timeframes might be closing above the daily here. Let's go ahead to the 2-day. We can see that is that just opened, and Bitcoin closed well above the upper second standard deviation and is balancing right on the upper second standard deviation. Much like what we're seeing on the daily, it's coming in right around this monthly at around 61 to 61,350. If Bitcoin can trade and close candles above here, we're looking right into the all-time highs, possibly higher. We have an 89 over 86 for our BBWP, so this move is looking beautiful. Hey, look at where that upper first is coming in, 54,865, so basically $55,000. So again, we're getting more confluence in that area. Of course, if that did fall apart, from the 2-day perspective, if we were going to be seeing this area lost, I'd be looking right back into resistance unless things just completely dumped out the next 1 day and 21 hours through this area to the basis. I'd be looking for the basis to catch up to the weekly here at around 50,000 to 50,800 or so. So again, we're looking to all of those same horizontal support and resistance levels, kind of coalescing around confluences with the volatility levels of the bands here. When looking at the 2-day on the oh man, this indicator's going nuts down here because I messed with it for the 6 months, so now it just doesn't know what to do. Let's go ahead and look at volatility real quick here. We can see that it is above the moving average. Moving average still has a positive slope. Yes, it's kind of price is going sideways, so it's kind of looking a little tired here, but it could very easily pick up if Bitcoin moves away to the upside towards the upper third and the all-time high zone. When looking at the 2-day here, we can see that momentum is pivoted at 62,300. It's not a far ways away. Volatility is so high that this could very easily be caught and closed above before the next 2-day, before this 2-day closes. So this would, of course, turn Stoke back to the upside. Either way, I'd be more in favor of this, looking like a bullish reset at some point than not. When looking at the 3-day, we also had a close open come in. We have continued volatility expansion. So BBWP is above the moving average here, coming in at 93/87. So the move's not done from the 3-day perspective. We can see that Stoke has turned to the downside initially. So this is an initial cross to the downside. 62,500 would turn it right back up. That's the close up here, right on the monthly, right above the monthly zone there. If we were to pull this out to the 4-day, which also got a fresh open, well, actually the 3-day might be worth looking at where the upper second stuff is coming in. Let's actually take a look at that. Upper second's right in the middle of the zone here at 59,800. So above there, we're looking up. All-time high zone very much in play. If it does lose it, upper first, skating right across the top of that $53,000 level as well. So would like to see that area tested if Bitcoin did come back to it, to be quite honest. I bet you there's a lot of liquidity there, and it'd be good to see it test that zone. But Bitcoin isn't going to do what I want it to do. It's going to do what it wants to do. And this is me maybe being a little more greedy than I have been lately and wanting a more aggressive pullback. But in this case, upper first, as long as it's above there, we're looking for continued expansion of the Bollinger Bands to the upside here. We see that 3-day looks good on BBWP. We already looked at Stoke. Let's look at the 4-day. 4-day is looking very good. We're still in an expansive phase for BBWP. So as that price volatility increases, we see that we're also coming off of a compression on the, let's go ahead and get, now we're going to keep the support and resistance levels because they're lining up very well in the 4-day. Upper second standard deviation got well closed above. In fact, closing even above the upper third on the 4-day here. That has pushed the upper third right there to $65,000. And the upper second is right here at this monthly at 58.8. And then if you look one level below, we see $53,000 right there by the upper first. We got that basis in the monthly zone down there coming in at 46.6, just below that $47,000 monthly zone. And of course, we did see a major close open down here, but we've seen, one more set of candles up here that have provided quite a bit of support locally at those weeklies at around that 51.8 level. In this case, this is telling me, excuse me, trying to hold a cough while talking is not great. This is telling me Bitcoin wants more, to be quite honest, as long as it's closing daily candles above the upper second. And even in between, if Bitcoin wanted to, run it back and then pop back up from the in between 4-day closures, it could very, very well do so. When looking at the 5-day, which also just got a close open. So we had a daily through 5-day close open with the monthly. And we've got the upper second for the 5-day right here at the monthly. Isn't it beautiful how this stuff lines up right there at, so our volatility level is coming in at 58, 500 or so, or 450. So, and to around 58.8 at the monthly there. If that area is dropped, the upper first is coming in just below $53,000, but just above the weekly support zone that Bitcoin just exited on the 5 day. And that, man, how pretty is that, coming off the weekly and then closing right up against the monthly for the 5 day? Just a beautiful, beautiful sight to behold. I mean, it's the same thing for the weekly. If it were to close, the weekly candle coming in, if this was to close like this, it would still be just absolutely beautiful. Upper first, being above there, everything, like I said, my personal opinion is anything above 53K on daily closes is destined to go run the all-time high. And anything that remains in this monthly all-time high zone, you know, if it continues to close candles in here, it's probably going to get to the all-time high quicker than most think. And, below there, of course, we've got the basis coming in that monthly zone down here at 47.7 to 45.5. And man, a $15,000 Band-Aid rip would really wash a lot of open interest out of the markets. I would love to see it. Doesn't mean we're gonna. The weekly here, the upper second, by the way, is coming in at $56,000. So right there in that $55,000 to $56,000 closure area. Upper first is slightly below these weekly support and resistance levels from the prior cycle, and that's coming in at $49,000. So if that, I had mentioned if that area was lost, I'd be looking to $49,000 at the wick over here to this monthly at $47,000. So of course, we have levels that are going to line up right in those areas, and that is pretty much my take on price right now. Let's go ahead and get rid of the support and resistance levels for a moment here. And let's go ahead and look at daily potential pullback targets. And we're going to pull a few fibs. First, we're going to pull, the low fib. Well, we'll pull the higher low fib from this move. So if you were doing Elliott wave, you would not do it like this, but you would measure the moves with fibs, but you would not do it like this. I'm not an Elliott wave guy, but I wanted to show you, we hit the 1786 over here. If you were to, take a look at how price acted, it got to the 1272 and paused after getting above the 100%. If you were to take the prior moves up into resistance at 53 from that low at 38.5, we have Bitcoin really playing in some beautiful extension levels, coming up to the 1272, get above that, find support on the 1414, maybe try to make an assault for that 1618 by $65,000 there by the first of the 2021 all-time high runs. So and if that area was lost, you can see the 100% would be a retest of that $53,000 level by the basis, of course. Now, if we're to take the full move, and this is a move that's still in progress, so I don't really encourage you to do this. This is more for looking for pullbacks. You could look at the extension, say 72 to 73.5, probably pretty much fair game, or maybe even $80,000 by the 1414 from here. But I don't like doing that unless I see a closing high. So if we do see a close below, in this case, yesterday's wick low at 60,355, at minimum, that's a swing. If we saw an additional closure, we'd get a closing high or confirmed closing high. Now, you're going to get people that would vehemently disagree with me, by the way. I say the way that I do this is any close below 60,355 is confirming the swing high. And if it were to do it in today's candle, it would have to close below 57,000 of the open from Wednesday in order for me to consider it a closing high. Otherwise, it's all inside bars. It would be inside bars anyway. But if we saw an additional, let's say, Saturday closure come in, let's say today's closure in this example, closes below 60,355, the wick low from yesterday. Confirm the swing high. If we got a closure below on Saturday, wherever today's candle closes, then I would call that the closing high. But if we only see a 3 candle structure, that can very easily be swing high to swing low and then back up. So that is how I derive that analysis. It is skirting on being technically correct and being a experienced way to interpret price action in terms of swings and closes. If I was going to give you a test, it would not. It would be the close below the wick low. We have a closing high in because we have the closing higher high, and then we have a closing lower low area, and then you break that low on a close, and then you're good to go to call it a high. But in any case, what I wanted to show you was that run up to 64,100. The 618 is right there cutting across those highs at 53. So again, we're bullish above 63, heavily bullish in the range. Things could even fall towards that 50% where the lower first is now coming in at around $49,000 to $50,000 and swing this last low. I wouldn't want to see it closing below there, but just so you have a good idea of pullback areas of interest. Of course, when looking at the monthly, we did run some of these fibs because we don't have any kind of a monthly closing high or even a weekly closing high to go off of right now from this zone. You know, if you're going to do any kind of closing high analysis, you know, you're really looking at the lows down here to the most recent closing high. And even in this case, this was more of a swing. And we have the 1272 coming in at 67,238, and then the 1414 coming in at 79, almost $80,000. There is confluence, of course, with the fibs that we had just pulled prior, and then you know there's some other extensions off of this move. You're going to take the live move, but more importantly, it's for right now it would be the lows to the most recent, so closing lows, closing highs rather, and then closing lows to the closing lows here. And we've got the 1272 at around 100,000 to the 1414 around 128. Yes, there's many other fibs that are going to give you targets like that. You know, the primary one that we were just looking at for the current move, you know, this is, I'm sorry, this would be from the swing low to the current wick high. You know, somewhere around 72, 73.5 to maybe even 80. So we have confluence at the 1414 from the current swings. But, you know, we don't have a swing high in yet on any of these longer term time frames. So it's more appropriate to pull it from the prior run down to the lows until we see it confirmed at minimum weekly high. You know, you could take this high, like I said, to this high. And no problem there. You're not going to get it as you'll get in between moves, like the 67,238, and you know, you see confluences all the way through the fibs, like you know the 618 being resistance at $31,500 to $32,000 or so. But you know, in any case, you know we're looking to generally the same areas. On both sides for the local swing to the current high and this move. So until we see another weekly high, then we can start really gauging longer term upside. So we'll discuss this some more tomorrow. I've already spoken too long, but we did have quite a few closures in between the daily, and then we had the monthly closure and all that stuff coming in. So I'm gonna bid you farewell, and I will see you tomorrow for the live stream at generally the normal time. We'll see if I can make it on time tomorrow for the 10:30 a.m. Pacific Standard Time and 6:30 p.m. UTC. So if I can make it there, if not, it might be a half hour to an hour late, and I will let you guys know on X.com. All right. You have a wonderful morning, afternoon, and evening, no matter where you are in the world. Please trade safe. And of course, as always, stay safe. And with all of that being said, Landy out.